if I don't do this, next time an opportunity like this presents itself, I definitely won't do it.
Yep.
Because I copped out. I don't want to say copped out. I'm going to do it. It's not that I'm really afraid. I do. I feel a little bit like an imposter.
He has two options right now. He could say, I'm not a rapper and I'm never going to be a rapper. Or you can say, I may not feel like a rapper yet, and I may not be a rapper yet, but I'm going to go rap.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was episode number 1000.
I'm going to need you to stop kicking that.
397. Who are your role models? Today, for episode number 1398, is fear a red light? Good.
Or a green light.
Or a green light for you. I just wanted to make sure you didn't spit your drink all over the place. Another friendly reminder / gentle apology. Alan and I are recording in person together. We're very giggly. We don't get to see each other that often, so when we do, we're giggly.
It's a good time.
It's a good time.
It's hard work, and it's purposeful, and it's meaningful, but it's also fun.
Yes, it's definitely hard work and long, hard work. Why are we doing this episode? Why are we doing this episode?
We are doing this episode because you want to do a very unique thing.
I do. So, as you have heard on this podcast, and things have changed a little bit, actually. So, there was an episode where I talked about a YouTube channel with Kyle Beats. I don't know his last name. His name's Kyle. He's a producer. He's produced for some pretty big artists, and he has a YouTube channel where he shows the behind the scenes of making beats and making songs. And when I found it, I was like, this is it for me. This is amazing. So he does this thing on YouTube where he will say, if you have been... So, okay, this is common in the rap industry. A producer will drop a beat on their social media, and people will comment, I would have killed that beat. So if I was the artist on that song, I would have crushed it. So eventually it got to the point where he said, okay.
You want me to drop a beat?
No. Okay. Eventually he got to the point where he said, okay, I am going to do videos where I let people jump on the beats that they said they would do really well with. And then he made a Spotify channel out of that. And now it has like, I don't know, it might have like 600, 700,000 subscribers or something.
Nice.
So he did a post today, actually, that he was doing this. And I think it's going to be a pretty big YouTube video. And he said, just comment me if you want the beat. What can I do for you?
I'm just happy.
You're happy.
Yeah. Well, you said post. Very, very
post.
interesting.
I feel fancy.
I commented on a post.
I feel fancy. I'm at the boss's house. I'm trying to bring my best work. Do you know what I mean?
You're doing a great job.
I appreciate it.
Keep it up.
So he put out a post, and he said, if you want this beat and you want to be potentially featured in the next video, just comment me underneath. And there's like 4,000 comments or something. And I'm like, okay. And I had this part of me that said, I really want to do this. I feel like I could really do a good job. And no matter what happens, it'll be fun. Then the limiting belief in me said, this is a giant waste of time. Don't even spend the time to do this. Like, why would you even bother filling this out? You got to put your name and email and stuff, and then you get an email. And I said, this isn't even worth it. And I thought to myself, is this discomfort, is this uncertainty, is this fear a green light for me, or is it a red light for me? And then I went through the process of filling it out, and I told Alan how excited I was. Yeah, for a long time, I've been saying feel the fear and do it anyway, but I also understand how challenging that can be, especially if you haven't done that before.
You can't preach it, sir, and then not do it.
Well, that's part of it. That's one of the reasons.
You lead by example.
The other reason is I am very passionate about rapping, and I feel... What's the worst? I mean, the worst case scenario is I don't get an opportunity, or I spend 5 hours writing a song and nothing happens. Either way, it's going to be a good experience. But my question for you is, if you're watching or listening, for you, is fear a red light? Is it a green light? Is it a yield sign? What is it? What is it for you? Because at the end of the day, unless you are so incredibly blessed where everything you want to do comes easy to you, you're going to end up facing fears. You're going to have to deal with insecurity. You're going to have to deal with limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome. Most of that's going to pop up. If your typical reaction is to run in the opposite direction, I don't know. I don't feel good about the future. I know for me, this all started from writing music, having a friend who rapped, and him saying, hey, we should really rap together. And I remember I had the same thought. he's recorded music before, and I was like, there's no way this is going to go well. I'm going to do terrible. And we recorded, and I did a really good job, and he was blown away. And he's like, dude, you're way better than I am at this. It's like, oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Then we went down to Florida with Eddie Pinheiro, and Eddie's written many songs, and him and I rapped, and you were there, you watched it. Mm-hmm. And Eddie's like, dude, you are really, really good at this. Like, it took you 45 minutes to write this whole thing. I was like, oh, thank you. I don't know. I've never really done this with anybody else. So even to get to where I am today in terms of just recording a song and then putting it up on Instagram and not really worrying. I'm not really worrying anybody's going to say anything negative. I'm sure people will, but that just come from me saying, oh, I'm a little bit afraid of this. I'm a little bit nervous. I don't really know if I identify as a rapper. I definitely don't identify as I wouldn't say I'm a rapper around a group of rappers. Definitely not. I feel like an imposter for sure. But getting to even where I am today is based on saying I'm a little bit afraid. Let me use this as a green light and kind of see what happens.
We're going to do an episode, I think, soon. Yeah. Episode 1400 is actually, are you stuck in an old identity? I think this is also useful in this context where Kevin is basically saying, I would never call myself a rapper in a room full of rappers, but there was a time when you wouldn't call yourself a podcaster in a room full of podcasters. And I'm not saying that you are or aren't a rapper. What I'm saying is that when does that change? And more importantly, this idea of identity, self-concept, we were in book club and I told Kevin about this story. I said, we were basically celebrating Brandon. Brandon is the director of book club and he does Miles for Mindset. I've talked about it on the show and I'm so impressed by the whole thing. But he says, whether I walk it or I jog it or I crawl it, I'm getting a mile in. And the point is not to run a 6-minute mile or to reach some arbitrary number or to do a mile well. The goal is to keep the promise to myself. And Miles for Mindset, it's to get your head right. You know, obviously if you've ever run or jogged or been outdoors, it clears your head. There's the runner's high. It's a great thing. So anyways, we're celebrating Brandon in book club and he just surpassed 250 days in a row of a mile a day. And it wasn't always perfect, but he always got it done. And I said, okay, well, isn't it interesting how if I were to go to Brandon 250 days ago and say, hey, can you run a mile every day for 250 days? He would have been like reluctant to say yes. But now if I say, hey, can you run 250 days in a row? He obviously would say yes because he's done it. Mm. And it's this identity. And then I had everyone in book club. I said, everyone raise your hand in book club. There's like 12 of us. You know, who here thinks they could run a mile? And I was actually shocked. There was a couple people in the room that didn't raise their hand, and I understand now in hindsight. And then I was like, wait a minute. Amy L was in the room, and Amy L is coming up on 300 plus days of consistent 30 minutes of exercise. And it's usually walking or whatever. She's doing weight training. She's also doing yoga. But in my head, it was like, of course you could. And I said, okay, maybe run is the wrong term. What about like a light shuffled jog? And she's like, well, how big is a mile? Because they use kilometers in Canada. And I'm like, I looked it up and it was 1.61. And they're like, and then her and another member of book club were private messaging of like, oh, I've already walked a mile today. And it's like, I realized that she's stuck in an old identity and we're going to end up doing an episode about identity. But Kev he has two options right now. He could say, I'm not a rapper and I'm never going to be a rapper. Or you can say, I may not feel like a rapper yet, and I may not be a rapper yet, but I'm going to go rap. And then let's say you did actually get this. Like, let's say you actually did win. Like, okay, that is a possibility. I know it sounds crazy, but it is a possibility. I bet you'd identify as a rapper after that.
The interesting thing is it's not that I don't think I could win.
What is it?
I don't know. It's just I don't really feel like a rapper until somebody who identifies as a rapper tells me I am one. I think that's just kind of, just like I didn't identify as a podcaster until I started getting around podcasters that identified as podcasters. So it's almost like I need and this is less than ever, but it's almost like I need somebody to co-sign what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, no wonder why this has been so beneficial because I'm often doing that
Definitely.
for you. And I wonder how many people need external validation to validate an identity.
I would say it's probably so I've recorded 2 or 3 songs. And when I say songs, I don't mean a full song. Usually I'm putting it on Instagram. So usually it's like a minute, maybe a minute and a half. I just take a piece of the song and I shared it on my story and I tagged him. His handle's Kyle Beats and he liked my story. And I remember I told Taryn, I was like, wow, that's pretty weird. That's interesting. Now again, he might like everybody's story that tags him. I don't know. But that built a little bit of belief. Yeah. Rapping with Eddie Pinero, that built belief. So, well, he's a musician. He said I was really good. For me, I think it's always about finding the ceiling and the floor. And the only way to really find the ceiling and the floor is to do it when you're afraid.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do it, you'll assume you're the floor. If you do end up doing it, you might realize, oh, I'm actually closer to the ceiling. And when I say ceiling and floor, I just mean we don't have to say best in the world, worst in the... We just have to, for this thought, it's just skilled and not skilled.
I want to circle back for a second. I want to make this really land because I said, Amy, unless I'm missing something drastic, I'm certain you could shuffle jog a mile at this point. You've exercised every day for 300 days. Like this is a past version of you that you're basing this off of.
Yeah.
And you could tell I kind of broke her brain, for lack of better phrasing, in that moment. She got a little red faced and it's like she was opening up. I could tell. There's always a moment in coaching, and obviously book club, I'm doing a little bit of coaching in this, but there's always a moment in coaching where they're like open. They're like open to a new identity, a new possibility. And it was this moment. I said, if you were to try it, that's a big if, because it's uncomfortable, right? If you were to try it, you would lock in that new identity if you self-assign it. So imagine she actually tries and does a mile, and imagine she actually does it and it's easy. Who am I now? What does this mean? What else can I do? See how belief and identity, but if she lets the fear and the old identity run, and this is the backstory she wouldn't mind me sharing, she used to struggle with an illness where every time she would exercise, she'd get chronic pain. And she's still running that same identity, even though she has 300 days of proof that she can handle more. And so, unfortunately, is there a possibility she runs a mile and then she gets chronic pain again? Yes, but that's the risk. Just like there's a chance. Yesterday I was in the gym and I was doing heavier weight on the leg press than I thought I could, quite frankly. I was trying to do 12 reps and I got to the point where it was like, I'm going to go for 15, and this is like a genuine injury risk. And I still tried it and I did it and it was okay. But I was definitely like, okay, there's a definite possibility I re-injure my groin here. You got to take a little bit of risk. I had this moment, I was sitting on the leg press and I was like, okay, I'm going to go for this higher weight. And I'm afraid. I'm afraid to get injured again. I'm afraid to go back. I'm afraid to injure my groin again. I'm afraid of the recovery. I'm afraid to all of it. And I said, but I need to do something that's a little bit outside my comfort zone. I need to do something that is like a little bit beyond what I'm comfortable with. And I did. And I ended up being okay. And I was very focused on form for sure. And I made sure I was warmed up and, all of that. But at the end of the day, that's where all the growth is. It's right outside what you're comfortable with. It's right outside. Kevin has this picture that we used at Next Level Live of a person in a fence. Jesse created it, but it was your concept. And outside the fence is fear. So someone's in a fence and they're fenced in, and outside of the fence is just fear, 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 fear. If you jump the fence, you realize that the fear was invalid because it was based on an old version. Yeah, maybe when you stood up to your mom when you were young, you got yelled at, and now you're not standing up to your intimate partner or your friend. But you're new now. Maybe you're 34, or maybe you're 35, or maybe you're 45, or maybe you're 25. But you're an older, upgraded version, but you're treating yourself like the same. That's like going back to the old flip phone and wondering why it doesn't take 4K video. But now you have this brand new iPhone and it really can take 4K video and zoom in and out, but yet you're still acting like it's a flip phone. There's a way to get new evidence, but it's never going to happen unless you get uncomfortable.
I had a similar moment at the gym where I was doing legs, and I haven't been doing legs, and we won't make this a full fitness podcast for you, but I used to squat 315 fairly easily, and I just hadn't done it. I hadn't done it in a long time because I wasn't keeping up with mobility, and my knee was bothering me. And I had a moment where I put it on the bar and I literally said, okay, I can do this. I know I can. There's definitely an injury risk. And this is the question I asked myself. I said, if I did it, knowing that I knew I could get injured, would I regret trying it? And then I said, no. Like if I was to blow my knee out and something was go horribly wrong, I know I'm very aware of the potential risks. I would still do it.
What did you calculate the risk really was? What was the percent?
No, it wasn't super high.
Yeah. It was unlikely, right? Most of it was in your head.
Yeah, it was mostly this is something you haven't done in a minute.
Whereas if you put 515, it's
I would
that's
break
just
my
reckless.
I would get dead.
Yeah.
That's the interesting thing is if I don't do this, next time an opportunity like this presents itself, I definitely won't do it.
Yep.
Because I copped out. I don't want to say copped out. I'm going to do it. It's not that I'm really afraid. I do. I feel a little bit like an imposter. But I know people that, and it's all subjective. I have a buddy who just started launching music on Spotify. And I am better at the art of rapping than he is, for sure. I'm certain of that. Mm-hmm. And he would admit the same thing. He's told me that behind the scenes and in front of the scenes. So that's something. I don't know. I wonder if I just require proof at a little bit of a deeper level. Less than ever.
Why?
Because I don't know I don't really know what I am. I don't really know where my skills lie because I've never... How do you know?
Hey, I wanted to give my experience working with Kevin and the rest of the Next Level University team. It has been such a seamless relationship. He is so easy to work with, Kevin, and he gives you all the information you need but doesn't overwhelm you. He's also meets you where you're at, so whatever you want to do, he'll make it work. And it's just, there's no stress, there's no drama. And everybody else that I've worked with has been patient with me because I am not technologically savvy. So they've been helpful and patient and just encouraging. And it's just been a fantastic experience. I highly, highly recommend working with them.
You know that quote of like, if you couldn't fail, what would you try? That never resonated with me at all.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because it's like a silly question, in my opinion. Like,
I agree. I do think it's kind of...
It's not really practical. Because it's like, then I would try to fly.
Yeah.
You know, I don't... But again, I understand now why that's a question that some people resonate with. Because this fear of failure... Jesse, Lizzie, and Amy did a Next Level U, NLU, live recently in Next Level Nation, and I overheard some of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched some of it. And Jesse was saying, my favorite part about Next Level Nation in this space at NLU is that Kevin and Alan lead by example when it comes to failing forward. They make failure okay. Mm. And if you are really, really scared of failure, I guess let me ask you this. Why? Like, what does it mean about you if you fail at this?
I'm not as good as I thought.
Which you're afraid of. Why?
Because I don't know how good I actually am.
So it's almost like you want to hold on to the identity that you might be good more than finding out if you really are good.
I don't think I actually do. Because for me, when I say I was afraid, it's probably less fear than most. I was through it pretty quickly. I had a very short moment, and this is probably too much information, but I was scrolling on the toilet. I throw it out there just because it paints a picture of how I was doing it. And I closed it. I saw the sign up. I opened it. It said name, email, so we can email you the song. It was it. First name, last name, email. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. This isn't it. And then I closed it and I was like, you got to do this. You absolutely have to do this. And then I opened it back up and did it. So it was a couple.
Why do you have to do this?
Layers. There's many layers. His audience is probably actually into self-improvement because he is into self-improvement. He's a very positive guy who's always talking about mindset, and he always shares the behind the scenes of his failures and how long it took him to succeed, and he's consistent. He talks about the compound effect. So I think there's also a pressure part of me that's like, imagine if this did work, this could be really good for NLU and we could help way more people, and this might be an up level for NLU. So I think there's an extra level of...
Yeah, is the perceived opportunity great enough to where it overcomes the fears? I'm
going to do it. And I do feel like I will do a good job. Do I think anything will come of it? I don't know. But worst case scenario, nothing comes of it. I'm okay with
Why
that.
would old Kevin not do it?
Fear of judgment. I've been writing music since I was 15 years old. I remember I bought a microphone long before I dreamed of being a podcaster, and I would rap. I would write raps, and I would never tell anybody. I would never release them because I was afraid. I didn't know, there's that stereotype, like, oh, the white rapper from the small town. Like, oh, everybody knows a rapper that they went to high school with. And then I remember I recorded a song, and I said that in the beginning. Like, I'm that kid from high school. I'm that kid that you're talking about when you say, like, oh, yeah, remember that kid from... So I just tried to own it. But there's always a little bit of fear that people are going to say this is garbage. I did a little, like a mini song, and I put it on my story, and I was like singing a little bit, and I had a moment of like, oh my God, I might hear something about this, because I don't claim to be a singer. But then I just did it and said, well, what's the worst that can happen? What the worst that can happen is 50 people reach out and say I can't sing. It's like, no, I understand. Trust me, I don't claim to be able to. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
That's the thing that I've tried to get across a lot is if you enjoy something, the benefits of you doing that thing are far beyond any feedback you get. Yeah. I love rapping. I love it. I just enjoy it so much. It's different. It takes me to a different place. It's just a different side of me. If somebody wants to crap on you for doing something you love, it's just a sad place for them to be.
This is why near-death experiences... So I was at a memorial service for my Uncle Joe this past Saturday, and anytime I've ever been at a memorial service, it's always such a challenging but also beautiful reminder that in the end, you're going to be grateful that you had the courage to do the things you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that Steve Jobs has a quote in his Stanford address that I love, which is, you are already naked. Like, in the face of death, everything else slips away. Fear of judgment, fear of embarrassment, fear of failure, all that stuff is nothing in comparison. And so for him, he had pancreatic cancer, and obviously pancreatic cancer ended up taking him. But in his Stanford address, he was talking about how that freed him in many ways, because and after my car accident, same deal, you with suicidal ideation, there's something powerful to be said about when you have that perspective of like, am I going to regret staying small the rest of my life? Never speaking up, never. And I think at the end of the day, and I want this to really land, there's a lot of people from my past that don't like me. They judge me. They talk behind my back. I've literally witnessed some of it. Some of my friends have told me, like, I've been definitely like dragged through the mud, for lack of better phrasing. But I know deep down at the end of the day, it's like, at least I had the courage to do something. At least I had the courage to be somebody, to be who I am, to, there's 1,400 episodes, or almost 1,400 episodes of us putting our heart into public. And I think that deep down, everyone has respect for that, even if they don't agree with everything you say or everything you are, everything you do. And I don't know. It's you either get to live your dreams and live your passions and live your purpose, live your calling, or you stay silent because you're afraid of judgment. And no matter what speech you give, I've had speeches that I crushed that people said that was the best thing I've ever seen. That was amazing. You're a world-class speaker. I've literally had someone say you're a world-class speaker. And I've also been to the point where I'm not sure we will ever get invited back here. I'm actually certain we won't, at least not for this training. And the walk of shame of Kevin and I literally walking through the audience, surprising that we're not getting food thrown at us. And I've had everything in between. And so at the end of the day, I'm grateful that we tried. I would rather try and fail 1,000 times than not try at all. And that's what was very clear to me after my car accident at 26, when I had that brush with mortality. And so hopefully that can free you can't embarrass yourself more than we have on this microphone. We have episodes that are just not good. We have every audio mistake, video mistake. We are 1,400 episodes in, and Kevin's at my place because our audio is still a challenge. I don't know.
I'm upset.
If there's permission that we can give you to go fail, like, I hope that that's something that you take from this, because we've met the best of the best and people at the very start of every journey, speaking, podcasting, personal development, wealth, business, like all over the world. At the end of the day, what's going to matter is that you chased your passions and that you spoke what you believe and lived what you believe and grew along the way. And, I think that failing forward's got to be the best thing in the entire world, even though it does hurt. It does hurt, but that's what transforms you. I don't think you can transform from easy workouts. I don't think you can transform from non-courageous fear chasing. I don't think you can. It's not fear chasing unless you're afraid. There's nothing to, when you lift weights, there's resistance. There's something to work against. And there's always risk of injury. There's always risk of looking bad. There's always risk of sounding stupid or asking a dumb question. There's never not going to be risk. You just got to use it to transform you and grow. There's never, every shot you've ever taken, there's a chance you miss, but I don't know. You can spend your whole life trying to stay safe and avoid judgment. There's just no way you're going to get judged anyway.
That's our next episode.
Is it? You're judging yourself by staying small and not having courage. So I remember living small for sure. Oh, it was the worst. And this is better, even though it's more challenging.
I cannot imagine a life without fear exists.
No way.
So that really...
Only a life of ego, right?
Yeah, but there's fear underneath that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be my next level nugget is I cannot imagine a world or a life in which fear ceases to exist, so you really have to understand what your relationship is with it. One of the reasons, and again, there's layers to everything. One of the reasons I want to do this is because I don't know what, I don't know who, I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know any of that, but I'm going to make a rap album eventually. It's going to happen. I don't know when. And hopefully we'll be at the level of success where I can attract some people that I look up to. If I'm going to be afraid, then for sure. Of course I am. But if I don't do this, I'm not going to have the level of fear chasing. Two things before we go. Recent and relevant proof. We've talked about this a lot, but you're going to look for the most recent proof you have. When's the last time I wrote a song? And relevant proof. When's the last time I got hate or love? I got love. Somebody reached out to me and said, wow, the lyrics to this are amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. If you're listening, you're the best. And I get a lot of love for the stuff that I write. So it's recent and relevant proof for me. Maybe that'll resonate with you. That's a version 2 of the next level nugget. What is yours before we go?
Next level nugget. What's your relationship with failure? If your relationship with fear and failure is keeping you small, check in on that and try to face your fear and your failures just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. We talk about one of the Amy Diaz and how she was so scared to talk to a stranger at the mall, and by the end of that day with Kev, she was riding zoo animals around the mall, not afraid of judgment at all. Mm-hmm. So if that's possible, then what else is? And at the end of the day, yeah, the next level nugget is fail forward, for sure. Fail forward. It's all good. You're going to be grateful you did. Even when it hurts, ultimately you'll be grateful you did. Even though in the moment you definitely won't.
If you are looking for a safe place to fail forward, please join our private Facebook group, Next Level Nation, 701 members strong, I believe, as of today. Link will be in the show notes.
If your mental health is strong enough, failure and people making fun of you and judgment isn't going to affect you nearly as much. I remember when I was in high school, I got made fun of and bullied, and it affected me so much. And now when that stuff happens, it's kind of like, whatever. I'm proud of me, so I don't really care if you are, whereas back then I needed that so much. So my mental health wasn't very good back then. And so we have a meetup August 10th, 2023. at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know why I said 2023. This year, it is this year. Is your mental health hindering your growth? The answer is yes. And if you improve your mental health, you're going to improve your growth. If you improve your growth, you're going to improve your results. I've had a therapist now for probably coming up on 6 months to 8 months. I don't know exactly when, but it's been, hashtag time. It's been super, super helpful to work on my mental health. So we're going to talk about that, and I hope you join us. The link to the landing page will be in the show notes.
And as always, it's free. You can participate. You don't have to participate. You don't have to have your camera on, your microphone on. It could be a fly on the wall. Whatever is most comfortable for you. That is our goal, to create a safe environment.
4 easy payments of free $99.
Free $99. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow, for episode number 1399, we are talking a little bit about judgment. Don't judge a book by its cover. I had a very interesting, and I'm nervous, I guess, anxious to share this because I'm afraid how it's going to come off, but for the audience, for value, that's my goal. I had an interesting thing happen this weekend that really shaped my perspective on this, so I will share that tomorrow. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.
If Kevin can rap with the rappers, what might you be able to do?
Wow.
Next Level Nation.